Sorry, my dog is really sad right now.
Oh no.
And that's how I feel about this card.
Hey guys, today we're discussing Overcosted Cards, and I'm here with Daring Lime, who I think we've mentioned on the channel, definitely on the podcast, but hasn't been here in person before. So, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun video. This video was inspired by a comment I got quite a while ago, 2 months ago apparently, so not as long as I thought. And it was the last part of the last line that caught me, how a stat wasn't correctly evaluated on different cards and how that might affect you using them, or as it might be, maybe not using them. And that's where the idea came from. And not even having Spider-Man on your art will protect you. So we'll see how this goes.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
Friendly neighborhood overcosted card.
Yeah, there are some good ones. There are some really good Spider-Man cards, but you won't see them in this video. So we're going to talk about kind of why they're overcosted, what price we'd expect them to be, and just move through a few different cards from different aspects and, basic cards as you may see here on the screen. Up first, we have Invulnerability, which came with Thor's pack. And if you ignore the number in the top left corner here, I think this is a good card. It's got a cool name, cool art. I think I like the style myself. It's got the superpower trait, which is pretty interesting. Now, apparently, Hawkeye can, become completely invulnerable. We were just discussing that before we started recording this. What do you think about this so far, Daring Lime?
I am not the biggest fan of this card. It's like fine in the sense of that its effect is really good. There's just other ways to block damage from an attack, mostly like any ally in the game. Uh, that apart from Overkill, this is going to be not as good as an ally.
Yeah, it's very expensive. It's a free cost, what would say, for effective resources, which I should probably explain at the start of the video. If you have 4 cards in your hand and you want to play this card, you have to spend all 3 other cards. You've lost 4 cards from your hand. And yeah, tough status card is really, really good. Free cost for effective resources, very, very bad when your cheapest ally is going to block the attack just as well from, 90% plus of the villains. Tough definitely, get more value in certain scenarios. Project Wide Awake springs to mind. Maybe even Eunice, however you pronounce it. But there's also just other ways to mitigate that. Healing, extra health. It's just, this is a very tough ask to include in your deck. How much would you expect this to cost for a tough from a basic event?
Can the event that comes to my head are the protection ones, like the Guardian one that lets you get a tough status card after you take damage. The name's escaping me. Like Shake It Off, I think. Yeah,
Yes,
Shake It
yeah.
Off. Is one cost, but with the extra like requirement that you have to have taken damage. So going off of that, I would expect this to be 2 cost, to be slightly more expensive than that, but easier to pull off because you don't have to have taken damage first, and
Yeah.
just generally basic cards tend to be a little bit less efficient than your aspect cards.
Yeah. I think that makes perfect sense. I think 2 cost would be better for this. And you know what? I don't even know if it would get played much. Maybe it'd be, better tech against certain scenarios, but at least at 2 cost, it's better than 3 cost. I think at 1 cost, it's way too good for a basic card at least.
Yeah.
But I think the character this is most obvious for is Colossus. Have you ever tried this with Colossus?
No. Colossus is one of the characters that I have on my list of characters I want to explore more.
Yeah. I don't love it with him, but I see the arguments for it. I think most of the arguments are certain aspects which can't flip down to alter ego so easily. This is a good way to get a tough to replenish what he needs. But I just feel like there are generally better ways to go about it. But it's kind of nice in a pinch, but I still don't love it there personally.
The next card on the list is actually Smash the Problem from Valkyrie's pack. It's a 1 cost event, 1 printed cost that says hero action thwart, exhaust your hero, remove threat from scheme equal to your hero's attack, which doesn't sound that bad. And then it also gives aggression a way to thwart, which is lacking in a lot of aggression decks. But the opportunity cost of missing out on your like large attack from like 3 attack heroes that are playing in aggression is like an invisible cost to this card that makes it hard to justify going into a lot of my decks.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's the, exhausting your hero. It's not about what it gives you, it's about what it takes away. That's where the problem really lies with this card. I like it in some solo decks. I mean, to be fair, I don't know if I've actually used it in any recent ones. We have the eternal struggle I have with aggression decks. I just want to throw in basic allies because that's how I'm going to get my, most efficient thwarting a lot of the time here. And there's so many good ones now at thwarting. We just got Beak, We've got, a variety of different ones. Even Deadpool, Professor X is the obvious one. It's hard to find deck space to smash the problem. But, in a pinch, if I've got, 4 attack, I've got, I'm playing 4 with combat training, this could be really good to get rid of a side scheme that I didn't have a good answer to. But I'm not happy I had to do it. It's just kind of, one of the best options I had in aggression, which is, a little bit tricky here. For me, I don't know. I feel like if you take away the exhaust your hero, maybe this is too good. So I think it's a bit tricky to say exactly where it should fall on the cost, because let me ask you this. If this was a 2-cost card, but you didn't have to exhaust your hero, would you be including this, do you think? Do you think that would make a big difference?
Oh, that's interesting. 2-cost card, but you don't have to attack your exhaust your hero. I think this would probably go into a lot of my decks because at that point, it's not that hard to get 3 or 4 attack in aggression. So then it's just basically 4 justice in aggression.
Yeah. I think I would use it more too, and I don't think it's necessarily unfair because no character starts with 4 attack, so it's never going to be, as easy as for Justice, and only certain characters can get it. I don't know. I feel like compared to the basic allies which can fort, that is still not as powerful personally. Maybe it's too good, but that's kind of how I feel about that. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a ton else to say. I wish I could use this to fort. I think this is a fun card, even if it's not costed how I want with the exhaust. I think it's fun. I love, smashing the problem is such a fun idea.
My brain actually went the opposite way on the cost here. What I was imagining was you still have to exhaust your hero, but then it's 0 cost. And would you ever play Smash the Problem over Chase Them Down?
I would say yes. The problem with Chase Them Down, it's such an efficient, good card, but it's only if you got a minion out on the board, which is kind of a different kind of cost. It's just consistency kind of thing, which does vary with player count and things. So I actually think, yeah, if this was 0 cost, I'd also play this a lot more because, I feel like the value of 4 damage to full forwarding, it will change at different times, but forwarding generally is in lower supply, so the 0 cost, I think, is justified there. I think the 1 cost, a 2 effective resource card, is just that bit too much. So I think I like either of those solutions. Maybe the 0 cost but still exhaust, maybe even more to make it, that much more different.
I also would like to point out the vibe of this card is cracking me up when I was looking at it more. You got a Valkyrie on the front. Oh wait, no, or that's Jane Foster Thor maybe. One
Yeah.
of those two is on the front with the hammer. The flavor text is "Let Mjolnir speak" from Thor, and then it's a mental resource while you're swinging your hammer. Okay, the next card on our list is All for One, a leadership event. It's 2 cost and says deal 3 damage to an enemy and exhaust any number of Avenger characters you control, and deal 1 additional damage to that enemy for each character exhausted this way. So 2 for 3 is fine, but not that great. So the 2 for 3 doesn't really make me want to play it. And then the hook of exhausting Avengers characters you control to deal 1 additional damage for that is also not that enticing to me because a lot of your allies are going to have more than 1 attack. So the way I view this is you deal some damage and then you save an activation for later for your allies that you're getting out. But oftentimes with the tempo of the game, saving ally activations is sometimes very difficult to justify instead of playing a more of a tempo strategy. And then yeah, I don't know. I don't have all that much more to say about it.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, 2 cost printed card for 3 damage is Haymaker from, the core set. And, Haymaker's a card you only really use if you just don't have any better cards typically. I wouldn't say there's never a case to use it. You can maybe make some arguments that it's not the worst, but definitely not something I'm building around. And All for One kind of fits right into that. And like you say, I think just dealing 1 damage for exhausting a character, it's a very slow value. If you're playing these allies, you probably want to use them, especially in the modern deck building pool with Mighty Avengers. Your Avengers are probably going to have, big stats if you've really built into it. And this just doesn't do it for me. So I kind of feel like if it's a 1 cost, it's probably, I don't even know if it is too good. It probably is. I mean, probably not by leadership standards, but um, it's definitely difficult. I don't remember using this very seriously in decks for a long time. You can even run this, which is kind of funny, in Miss Marvel or Gamora in leadership if you're looking for some attacks to trigger some of their stuff. But it's really not much better than Haymaker in that situation.
Yeah, and this card doesn't have any flavor text.
Yeah, big downside.
Yeah, did giant downside.
It's a question for you. Are you happy to pay a higher resource cost for a card if it's got good flavor text?
I think so.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't think I've got a ton else to say about this one either. I don't know if it needed 2 additional damage per character, but that could potentially be too strong. But maybe it needs a cap on the amount of characters you could exhaust. You know, what if it was exhaust up to 3 characters and deal 2 damage for each of them? Uh, I don't know. I don't think I would hate that. I think that might be pretty good. I mean, what would that max damage be? 9? Okay, that's maybe slightly too much, but it does have some setup. You know, strengthening numbers gets you quite a lot for a zero cost card, but there's an argument that's too good of a card. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's not really the video topic. But this one definitely just needs some little edge. Maybe just higher base damage.
Yeah, a 2 for 4 though, and then this is I think this goes back to the thing you were talking about how it's not a very it's a very discrete form of resources. Because if it's 2 for 4 base, suddenly you're creeping in on aggression and just have
Yeah.
a better event than aggression.
Mm.
Like I see why they didn't want to do that.
What if
So if
this
this
card?
was a
Oh.
1.7, 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5 cost would be very useful for this game, I think. Here's a random idea just off the top of my head. What if this was something like I don't know, a 4 cost card, but you could exhaust allied Avenger allies to make it cheaper? Like each one you exhaust just makes it cheaper.
That is a very interesting one. Also, it leans into the theme because it's like all for one. So if it's just like Captain America dealing 3, that's not very thematic. So like it's like the more I like that idea of the more cards you exhaust for it, and the more allies you have, the easier it is to go all for one.
Yeah.
And it leans into like an archetype that already exists with like the Captain America ally getting
Yeah.
cheaper. I like that idea.
It makes me think of, in hindsight now, like almost like the alliance cards for players. You know, anyone can help pay for it. Well, now your allies, you know, kind of allied with you, they're helping you kind of pay for it. I think that's kind of fun. I like that too.
So another interesting thing to note about this card is that it came from Wasp's hero pack, which is actually one of my favorite hero packs. And in my deck building video, or not my deck, but my buyer's guide video, I highly recommended Wasp's hero pack. And now here I am on Villain Theory's channel saying that this is one of the worst cards in the game, or most overpriced cards. But I don't think that takes away from Wasp's hero pack. It's just unfortunately, this is one of the outlying cards in her hero pack that break the curve of being some of the best cards in the game.
Yeah, no, honestly, I 100% agree. I recommend Wasp's pack in my buyer's guide as well, and it's a really good pack, but not for this card, which is at the back of the pack. It's not one of the main deck, you know. The back of the pack cards are very interesting. I feel like they all tend to be very powerful or very underpowered, and I think that's less the case these days. But you know, you've got definitely a big mixture of stuff at the back of the pack.
Yeah, also the designers do put a card in there that screams stop at you, so you don't want to look at those cards.
I mean, they're not wrong. That's pretty funny. Next up, we have Height Advantage, which, you know what, it's a very interesting idea. It's a 1-cost upgrade that reduces the amount of damage you take from each attack by 1. And if that's all it said, this would go in so many decks, you know, it'd be unbelievable. But it has 2 downsides. One, you have to have the aerial trait to, you know, get any benefit from it, which is kind of interesting. So you can play this without the aerial trait and it just won't do anything, which I think is really funny. But if you don't have the aerial trait, you know, this card is not an option. So typically cards that are restricted to a certain trait tend to be a little bit better because of that. And to me, this card just isn't. Because of the Force Interrupt, when your turn begins, discard it. So you play it, you know, maybe the villain attacks you, you take 1 less damage, but unless you know you're getting other damage sources, it's not protecting you from anything. And you need several other damage sources that I think make this worth its cost. You know, if I'm playing a 1-cost card, we kind of talked about this a little bit with Invulnerability, you know. There are cards in protection, which are conditioned on certain things, that will give you a tough status card, which is typically going to protect you from more than this will in most circumstances. There are exceptions, you know, if you've got a lot of Ultron drones against you, if you're running Taunt, it will protect you from more. But to me, it's still, at best, if I really build into trying to make this work and have enemies that are against me, kind of, you know, then maybe it's worth it. But 99.9% of decks, I don't think you know, this is not even on my radar. I've buried it away and I'm trying not to think about it. What do you think about this card?
Yeah, I think you covered it really well. The aerial trait out of all the traits in the game is the one that's fallen flat the hardest for me. Because I don't even know what the idea is here. It's like you're aerial, which makes sense that like you're taking less damage because you're just like above everyone. So,
Yeah.
but then at the beginning of your turn, do you just land every time?
Maybe it's like Iron Man, you have to pay to go aerial with his boots. Maybe you've, run out of fuel, your wings are tired or something, and you're landing after having the height advantage. Uh, I guess it's something like that. Is this just a tough card to make work, really be worthwhile?
Yeah, I guess I love the idea of it too. Like I would honestly consider even if this was like a 3 cost card but permanent,
That's interesting.
I would consider playing that. But the 1 cost because like the idea is they wanted to make it like cheaper so you could play it more often.
Yeah.
But then the forced interrupt on here just I don't like it when my really, really good upgrades just disappear at the start of the turn and then I have to keep playing it over and over again.
I don't mind that, but it has to be worth it. For me, that's kind of like an event that lasts, for the turn or something. Almost like Blaze of Glory or something. If it's worth it, it's fine. But if I want to rely on it and it's gone, that's terrible. I really like your idea, how you describe it, being above everything. I think that is kind of the gist of this. And I wonder if there's a world where it is permanent or lasts longer or is cheap, some kind of advantage, but it only works on minions or something, I think that could be interesting or works more on minions. I think there's definitely some interesting angles you can go for this. Obviously, with sensible
Yeah.
balancing. But to me, this is a very unsatisfying bit where it's barely protecting you from much damage, which is fine every turn, but it's just one turn. And you don't know how many times you're getting attacked normally until you see that encounter card. So you have to guess that it's going to be worth it.
I I think that like if it was more expensive and what if the forced interrupt was just like even more thematic of if you lose the aerial trait, discard this card.
Yeah.
So like
That
for Iron Man, you wouldn't be able to do it, but then like Spectrum, who's always aerial, would be able to keep the card. I think that'd be interesting. And like someone like Thor, who can get aerial like immediately with Mjolnir,
yeah.
would be able to keep this around.
It's funny though, if he
Uh,
plays hammer throw, he would lose aerial, which is really funny. It could be a funny choice of
yeah,
do I hammer throw or do I keep my, damage prevention?
yeah, I think I would prefer that version of the card.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, there could even just be something as simple as that it's not a forced interrupt. Well, you'd have to rephrase the card, but maybe you could play it and choose when to trigger it. Something like that. I'm not sure, but it definitely needs a lot of love. But at least it's a tactic, so Cyclops can find it.
Yeah, Cyclops searches this out all day, just an extra resource. So our next card is a justice event called Brains over Brawn. It says hero response after your hero makes a basic thwart, deal damage to an enemy equal to your hero's thwart. So if you think about most characters, you're going to have about 2 thwart roughly because characters that start with 2 will have 2. A lot of characters that play justice might have 1 thwart and then want to play justice to get that 2 thwart. So if we assume that this is 2 or even 3 thwart, uh, you have to make a basic thwart, which is a cost, which can be mitigated by confuse, and then also the 2 costs of 3 effective resources to deal damage equal to your hero's thwart, which is going to be 2 or 3. So this is coming out to like one damage per card with an extra requirement on top of that that can be canceled, which is not ideal to
Yeah.
say the least.
Yeah. The average hero, the average force stat, it's very bad. And the characters with good force stats just still have better options anyway, where this card still doesn't even really break even to me. You can build into, what is it, Heroic Intuition, specialized training and stuff, but it's a lot of work to make a not good card kind of okay. Or it can be, maybe decent, that maximum value. But it's after you make a basic 4, though, so it's still restrictive on the timing. It's got everything working against it, kind of, as you're saying, it's just, I'm going to say it, I think if you really like this card in terms of efficiency, because it's a fun theme, and I like the idea of dealing damage equal to your 4, but this is kind of a brawn over brains card to me. I don't think it's an intelligent choice for a lot of decks.
Yeah. And I was just imagining while you're talking about that, like playing Phoenix Justice, having 3 printed thwart, playing Heroic Intuition, getting up to 4, and then I'm still spending 3 resources to do 4, and then stun and confuse both cancel this card.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even consider playing this in a Phoenix deck, to be honest. Which, well, I'd consider it, and then I'd decide against it.
Now we have Defensive Stance, which is from Black Widow's pack, and I want to love this card because I think Black Widow in protection is quite interesting. I think the idea of being in a defensive stance and ready to, dodge damage really, really interesting. But 2 cost for preventing free damage, it's a little bit like the invulnerability problem we talked about with, the first card on this video, because you're paying a lot of resources to block some damage, but there are just way better ways. Any 2-cost ally, you can play it, do something with it, maybe get its ability or whatever, then it's going to block a whole attack for you. And there's some advantage here that this works on non-attack damage, so, it maybe has a small niche, but for its cost, I think in 99% of situations it's overpriced, and if it's 99% of situations it's overpriced, I don't think that makes any decks, even if the theme is cool, even if it's a preparation for Black Widow.
Yeah, this card is makes me sad because I just, again, like you said, I like the idea of it, but I don't end up using it in my decks. And preparations are also supposed to be really. Sorry, my dog is really sad right now,
Oh no.
and that's how I feel about this card.
That's uh, I don't know what I have to say about this card. Obviously, it needs to prevent more damage to be worthwhile. I think since Tufts can be cheaper, I think since allies are super easy to get, I think to be competitive in the card pool, and you don't have to be, cutting edge, best card possible, but I definitely think this needs a bonus. I think even if this blocks 5 damage, yeah, I mean, I'm probably running it on Black Widow. I probably maybe run it on her sometimes anyway, just no, I don't think I do with target acquired, and it will depend on the deck and what's going on. But long story short here is, I think, you know, what if this interrupt said when you take any amount of damage, as an interrupt, get a tough beforehand, or prevent all of that damage. Do you think that is too strong for this?
Oh, that's a tough one because that card sounds really fun. Yeah, because it also thematically makes a lot of sense to me too, because you're like preparing. So it's like if you're preparing, I mean, Batman can dodge Darkseid's like Omega beams or whatever. So. Yeah, but unfortunately, this isn't Batman. This is Captain America, and Captain America takes hits and takes damage.
He has
And
a vibranium shield, so I feel like free damage should. It's not what the card is doing, but
yeah, the
yeah,
tough status card. I think that I would definitely play this card if it blocked all damage from an attack. It might honestly be too strong at that point. Um, I don't know. I like the idea of this card. I don't know how it could be balanced.
yeah, it needs something anyway. So yeah.
Uh, so now we get to the In-Betweener, which is a 2-cost event that is very unique. There's like nothing else quite like this in the game. It says action, shuffle this card into the encounter deck without looking. So don't cheat. You must not look. And then when revealed, deal 2 damage to the villain and remove this card from the game. This effect cannot be canceled. So if you think about this, uh, if you were able to guarantee that this came up, I would play this all the time because
Yeah,
it's not only a cancel, it's like you're switching this card for an encounter, and then all of a sudden you get a benefit to where you're dealing 2 damage to the villain. The sad part is that you're not allowed to look, so you can't guarantee that this is going to come up. So you could pay 2 cost, and then this card never shows up in the entire game. Conversely, though, you could pay 2 cost, you get it on top, and instead of fanaticism, you get the In-Betweener, and then you deal damage to Ronin, which feels amazing. But unfortunately, it's just unreliable because what you're doing is instead of canceling the card that you want, like a lot of treachery cancels are, you're just often either half the time like getting getting it as a boost, so it ends up being a 0 boost card, which doesn't actually get revealed, which can skip this card's effect, which is really sad.
yeah.
Uh, and then just canceling the boost icons on a card isn't worth 2 costs, in my opinion, at least.
No,
And then
definitely not.
yeah, and then the best case scenario is it's going to be like 1 out of roughly what, like 30, 40 cards someone in there for a villain deck. One out of those, then you have to divide that by 2 because it could also be a boost card, and then it just is not a reliable source of damage, despite this being one of my favorite cards in the game. And also notable for me is that I started out going from the core box to Mad Titan's Shadow with nothing in between. So I had Adam Warlock, and then I play my first deck that I built to beat that campaign actually had all 4 of these, each one from each different aspect, and it was just the most fun thing in the game to me. Like getting 4 of them into the deck feels really, really cool. But I just don't think I do think they're overpriced for the cost because they just again the half of it being a boost card. If it shuffled back into the deck, if it was used as a boost, I would love this card. But yeah,
That's really interesting, that idea, because all these cards, all the Cosmic Entity cards, they are just a little, like I say, pricey, and then you might not get any value out of them. Not everyone's aware of this, but if it comes up as a boost card, it doesn't even go into the encounter deck discard pile. It goes back to your deck because that's how cards that belong from different, places get sent. If it's going to get discarded, it goes back to the original owner's discard pile. So you don't even get a chance for it to come up on the next deck pass if you're in like a longer game, a multiplayer game that's going to, cycle that deck faster, and you could see it again. You won't because it's now in your discard pile. And the other thing I wanted to talk about with this and all the Cosmic Entity cards is that a lot of villains, almost all villains, I want to say, but definitely most scenarios, they have some kind of effect that discards, oh, this treachery says discard until you find a minion, or maybe Zola's main scheme, all these different things. And if this is discarded, it's the same as, discarding it as a boost card. If it's discarded from any means, it's just back to your discard pile. And then you are sad. Then you are very sad. So that's kind of a problem for me. I've heard people suggest, and it's just people, I can't credit anyone specifically, but I think it's kind of a generally accepted thing. If this did something good when it was discarded as a boost effect or just discarded at all, whenever it left the encounter deck, basically, it did something useful, I think people would like it more. What do you think about that?
yeah, I would like that. Again, like it's also cosmic entity traded. The thematics of this card I love so much because like the cosmic landscape is my favorite. So you would expect a cosmic entity card to be extremely impactful. The in-betweener is so powerful, but then just it doesn't feel that powerful when it's discarded from Zola's test counters and Zola just researches his way past the in-betweener or the living tribunal.
It reminds me of, there are some encounter cards that can get put into your deck, like the Mystique stuff, and if you discard the right way, you can kind of dodge them. It kind of feels similar, but that's kind of a bad feeling when it happens, when you put the card in the enemy's deck. My question to you as well is, I just had a thought looking at this. What if the action said shuffle this card into like the top 10 or top 5 cards of the encounter deck, so it'd be coming up relatively soon?
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I yeah, that I think I would play it. I don't know if I don't think it would necessarily be good. No, it might be. It might be because then you're looking at soon, not soon I get to cancel a boost, or in the best case, it's revealed and deals 2 damage. Which that if it was guaranteed to do that on the next turn, that would be really good, and I would play that every game. But it's
Yeah.
just I think I would play it if it went into some sort of defined part of the deck, or if you were just allowed to even place it second card on top of the deck, or you got to choose where it went within the top 5 cards, because it's a really standard effect to like look at the top 5 cards and order those cards like with blindfold and whatnot. So if
Yeah.
it was something similar to that where you could choose where it ended up and see what's going on, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, Blindfold is a really interesting comparison. One cost more ally does 2 forwarding than blocks generally, but you can fort twice. She gets to look at 5 cards and remove one. And wouldn't it be interesting if you could look at a certain amount of cards and replace one or something like that? That's interesting as well. I think there's a lot of angles where you could take this. And you might need to adjust the cost if it's really good, or maybe even reduce it if it's not. But I think there are many ways to fix this idea, and I love this idea. I think it's a really cool kind of thing for a card game where you get to mess with their deck and, alter it, significantly, more than just discarding a card, changing the order, adding something in. So love, love, love the idea. Would like to see it revised with, slightly different, something different.
Yeah. Notable for me though, I will still play all of these cards just because I like them that much.
That's awesome. I think that's really good. I don't touch this card if I'm honest with you. You know what I've never tried? I've never tried running all these in like an Adam Warlock deck alongside a global logistics deck that could manipulate things. I wonder if there's any potential there.
I think there is. Like Adam Warlock could run all of these global logistics and blindfold
Yeah.
and then order the deck. That might be my next Adam Warlock deck.
And last but definitely not least, we have Tenacity. This is a 2-cost upgrade that readies your hero. Readying your hero can be really good. Is it worth 2 costs? I would probably say not in most circumstances, but if that was all it would make some decks, repurpose decks that do a lot of damage, characters that really can boost up their attack stat or get extra effects off it. Yeah, I think I would. Especially, we could have Leadership, Blaze of Glory, or Avengers Assemble. There are ways to get more value out of your readying and, hero stats. But having to pay a physical on top of this is effectively a free cost card you just split up when you pay the cost, which is a small advantage, but it does require a physical, which is a specific type, which is another disadvantage. Basically, this is 4 effective resources, which is, one short of Nick Fury, and it's just readying my hero, which in most cases, most of the time, 2 damage, 3 damage, 2 forwarding maybe. It's, even if you boost it up, it still takes a lot of boosting to be worth 4 effective resources. What do you think about this card?
I think that even when I wasn't very good at this game and I just got the core box, I identified that I did not like this card, and I still don't. it's just so brutal because like you were saying, like if it was 2 costs, I'd consider it. But then when I look at cards that like I have to pay 3 effective resources to get it on the table, and then I still can't use it because I have to spend another, not even just a resource or a discard from my hand. It has to be specifically another physical resource on top of that. That's just it's just so brutal. To do what? To ready myself and then do 2 more damage or 2 thwart or like maybe 3 if you're lucky. I don't know. It's never made it into my decks other than when I just played the precon decks from the from the core box. But I
Yeah.
think I figured it out. I've been thinking about this in the back of my mind the whole video of like what is the character that included this card and then fought for the spot in the deck. And I think I figured it out. My
That's it.
prediction is that it's Quicksilver.
That's very interesting. So before we started recording this, I said to Daring Live, there is one hero where I sometimes use this card. And Quicksilver is actually a really good guess. Some people do use it with Quicksilver. That is not actually what I was thinking of, although he does often have the spare friction resistance resource and he can boost his stats up. So he's a really, really good candidate, honestly. And I could see myself maybe if I had a
Oh no.
restricted card pool using it, but that is not it. But I really, really like it.
Can I have a hint?
No, I'm just going to tell you, I think.
It's not a Hulk, it's not Tenacity. My other guess was Drax, and if it's not, then I don't know.
I'm going to give you one more hint, and they're X-Force, but not the one you first think of.
Oh, my brain. My brain. So if it's not the one I first think of, like when I think X-Force ready, I think X-23, but that doesn't make sense to me that X-23 has so many other ways to ready than Tenacity. I was thinking Cable, but now, since it's not the one I'm thinking of, is it Domino for zero reason?
It is not Domino for zero reason. I'm going to tell you, it's
Is it
Psylocke.
Domino for a reason?
No,
Oh,
it's Psylocke. So
because of the physical resource generators.
she starts with big stats. She always has physicals to hand. And my favorite way to play her is actually Repurpose, which is a skill card which she can summon to hand. So it's very easy for her to repurpose multiple tech on one turn, get huge stats, then pay for Tenacity and get 8 or 10 damage off of this card.
Okay.
That's the combo that I like. And I saw this on Marvel's CDB. I'll try and use editing magic to find that deck because I did not come up with that idea. Put the name of the creator on the screen or something like that because I think it's a really cool idea. But I have experimented with it a bit, and it doesn't make it every time I play that kind of deck, but it's made it a few times and I have enjoyed it. You can play it and build up for a big game-ending combo.
Yeah, it does make sense because repurpose gives you those stats for the whole round, and then you ready and then ready again without needing that much difficulty to spend the physical. I
Yeah.
like that.
And that does it for our look at overcosted cards. And we've seen some not so bad ones, but still kind of, not where we want them to be. And then there's Brains over Brawn. All of them, I would say,
Yeah.
you can use and win games with, but they might not be helping you win games as much as, 90% plus of the card pool is kind of where we're coming from with this.
Yeah, because I don't want to make it seem like we're saying it's impossible to build a deck like this, or like say that like imply that decks that have this are not functional, because like that's not the goal.
Yeah.
Also, building decks that are just for strength is not really what the game's about. You can build decks for fun, and like if you really want to be invulnerable and have a super powered Hawkeye, I think that's fun.
Do you know what sounds really interesting to me if we're building for fun? Is to build an Adam Warlock deck with all the Cosmic Entity cards that we were talking about, and then maybe some ways to shuffle those back in that we kind of talked about. Maybe, pair it with another hero like Starlord. What do you think about
I think that could be a great idea because, like, what if what could go wrong was
that?
actually the in-betweener? I don't
that
know. That seems
sounds
fun to me.
that sounds
If there's
really good.
just some way that there's two people that could build two decks that could work together with a plan and then make a video about that to share with the people, I don't know. That could be an idea. I hope someone does that.
Who could we ask? Who could possibly do that? Me and Daring Lime actually talked briefly, behind the scenes as we're going through this video about, after we talked about In-Betweener, what if we did that? We kind of came up with the idea. I'm gonna say, Daring Lime I think came up slightly more with that idea than me. So really, really cool idea. We're planning to do that now. Straight, off of this, completely spontaneous, not right now, but we will do that video on Daring Lime's channel. So some kind of gameplay video with Adam Warlock and Starlord trying to make use of the cards like Cosmic Entity and In-Betweener, with the plot twist that Starlord can actually run one of those from his own deck as well. And as he takes lots of encounter cards, hopefully we're going to get lots of beneficial effects.
Yeah, yeah. All of a sudden, what could go wrong is Star-Lord deals an extra 2 damage.
What could go right?
Yeah, what could go right? Maybe that's the title of the video.
I love that. And we can maybe, there's things we can do. We'll discuss it. I'm really excited for that. So make sure you check that out. Check out Daring Lime's channel. Lots of cool analytical stuff on there and gameplay and all sorts. And yeah, very cool stuff. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, anything that makes YouTube happy. And we'll see you, I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, and I will see Villain Theory in the next one.
And cut. Up first, we have Invulnerability, which came with... I hit my keyboard.
Which came with Valkyrie.
Which came with Valkyrie.